Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our listeners. We are back at it again with another episode of a World of BCD podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And today, once again, we are stepping away from a one-to-one conversation, and we've gathered up a little crew, a little posse, to talk about a very interesting topic. On the call today, we have Deborah Forrester joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, Jesper Glacius joining us from Spain, and Suzanne Michael's joining us from Utrecht in our headquarters, and we are talking about the distributed workforce. This is a topic that Deborah has come to me to just chat about offline, and I said, what a wonderful opportunity to pull some brains, some minds to download on this topic around a roundtable on the podcast, and so here we are. So Deborah, as we step into this, why don't you just give us a quick overview for you in all of the research you've done as well as the experience you've had. What is this thing called the distributed workforce?
Sure. Thanks, Chicka. The distributed workforce is really a new term for an older practice, which is the remote workforce. And the difference is that in the remote workforce category, many people said there were people that worked from a corporate office or from some sort of physical office, and then they could work 1 or 2 days a week from home, meaning that was the day they were remote, quote unquote remote. However, more and more companies are finding that to source really good talent, specific talent, let's say for us, talent in the travel industry particularly, they have to move to a different model, which is a distributed workforce. And this is a workforce that basically sets up their own offices in various locations. And the office location doesn't matter as much as the work and getting the right people to fill the job. So what I'm interested in this topic is the challenges that brings. I think there's absolutely some unique benefits, primarily, and Suzanne can speak to this a little bit more, on the recruiting side. You get a wider pool of candidates with the exact experience that you're looking from. People that might have been too far away from that office, especially here in the United States. You know, some of the rural parts of America have great people, but they can't travel to the office.
Right.
But the other part of it is, what are the managerial challenges? And that's what I would look to Jesper to talk about a little bit, because he does manage people in a very remote or a very distributed way.
That's awesome, Deborah. Now, are you, Deborah, in an office today? Are you at home? Do you have experience in both? How does that work for you?
Yes, and that's the interesting part of this, and that's how our conversation started, right, Chicka? I had mentioned on a separate call with you that when I first started with BCD, we were all expected to come to the corporate office in Atlanta, and we could work from home 1 day a week. It was considered to be a perk to be able to work from home 1 day a week. Since then, mostly because we started recruiting from other parts of the country, and those people were not required to relocate to the Atlanta home office, we started to be more and more distributed, if you will. And then at one point, even our CEO became a distributed employee, and that changed the way we operated. My senior leader said, hey, everybody else is distributed. We had some hiring that we had to do, and we found people in other cities. So we went to a fully distributed workforce, if you will, within marketing. And it was really led by product marketing first, but then now our marketing department is fully distributed. And then since that, we had a reorganization. At the time, of course, it was very important that our bosses, if you will, our managers, were out of the Atlanta location. But now we changed that, and most of the global management is out of Europe, and yet we still have those same employees, if you will, that are in the Atlanta office. So that's the experience I've had. And then prior to BCD, I've been in environments where working across a cubicle was very important. I was in the newspaper business for quite some time, and we prided ourselves of having a very open office environment, but having people sitting in the bullpen, if you will, overhearing conversations was a very important part of our office communication. Well, you can't have those kind of bullpen conversations. You can't have the water cooler conversations in a distributed environment. So your communications platform, and again, being out of a communications department, I'm very interested in this topic because your communication skill set has to be different, I think, in a distributed workforce.
So let me jump in real quick and ask the other two, Suzanne and Jesper. Maybe we'll start with Suzanne. Are you working from home at all? Are you completely in the office? How does it work from your perspective?
Well, I live 5 minutes away from the office by bike, so I'm a lot of the time I'm in the Utrecht office, but I do have a lot of contact with people all over Europe. One person in my team, she's based in Sweden, and sometimes I work from home, when it's more convenient, or
right.
When you have a lot of calls or something. So I do like having the flexibility to be able to work from home. Yeah, but since I live so close to the office, I'm here
biking
regularly.
to the office. Raise your hand if you're listening to this and you bike to the office. That's fantastic. Jesper, how about you?
Yeah, I am 100% working from home. When I started with BCD, I did go to the office a couple of days a week, but I've since moved regions as part of being part of this distributed workforce. I was fortunate enough to then be able to move from Australia to Spain, actually, and now I don't have an office within 1,500 kilometers, so I don't bike to work.
That's fantastic. And to paint some context for our listeners who may not know this type of data too, our distributed type of workforce is very different region to region. I mean, in America alone, we have over 70% of the almost 3,500 folks that are working from home, whereas in Europe we've only got 13%. In APAC we have even less. I think it's just less than 10%. So Latin America just less than 10 as well. So it's very, I don't want to say uneven, but it's very different depending on what region you're in.
That's interesting, Chicka, and I would like to ask Suzanne, because you do recruiting, correct? Mm-hmm. To talk about that distributed workforce as is that a recruiting feature for you? How are you finding that when you talk to candidates about the distributed workforce? What are they asking for? And again, what are you able to talk to them about?
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of the benefits that we offer. It's a question that comes up more and more the last few years. Can I work from home or maybe a few days a week? And then when they hear like, oh, it doesn't matter if you work from home or in the office, then sometimes it's a nice surprise for them to hear that. For me personally, it's easier to find talent if you're not bound to a certain location. If you can find a financial controller in somewhere in Europe instead of in Utrecht, then it makes it a lot easier to find someone. In EMEA, it's still the case that for some departments we do need people to be in a certain country or in a certain region if they have to meet a lot of clients or if they have to have a lot of meetings, then sometimes it's still a must. And I think that's the difference with regions that you mentioned, Chicka. In the US, it's very normal to have a position anywhere in the US, but here it's depending a little bit on each department how flexible they are with that. But yes, it definitely makes my life easier when it can be based anywhere, because it brings your swimming pool into like a bigger pool to fish in for talents.
So a follow up on that, Suzanne, when you are working with different hiring managers, do they pretty much dictate what kind of worker they want? The distributed is okay, or they absolutely are the ones that need the person to be within a certain area?
Well, it's definitely a question I always ask, and something sometimes the conversation starts where they're mentioning, I really need someone in this office, and then we have a conversation about it, like, why do you want that? Is that really a must, or can we look maybe more broad in the region, because that will make it easier to find talent? In this time, it's not easy to find the right talent. So definitely when it's a hard to find role, then I challenge a hiring manager more in that area as well to broaden the search. And I think a lot of them are open for that, but sometimes there are practical reasons not to. But yeah.
Yeah, and of course in Europe you have the challenges of the different countries and their different labor issues, right? That you'd have to probably maybe not be as broad, I would assume.
Yeah, and languages, if you want a German speaker, then you could maybe find one in the Netherlands, but the chances are higher that you would find someone in Germany or in Switzerland or something. Yeah.
Right. And Jesper, you're totally distributed now. How about the rest of your team?
Yeah, so we have a completely distributed team, and that is in every way, because there's 7 of us, and we're in 5 different time zones, spanning from Singapore in the east to Denver in the west. So we are very distributed, both location-wise and time zone-wise, and so yeah, we're very distributed.
And that for you was a necessity, right? Because you are crisis management.
Yeah, so for us, we are a team of 7 people, but we are covering 24/7. So we've established a follow the sun principle, so that we can all work during our days. So we all have relatively normal working hours. So in that regard, we sort of have one tick out of the box, if you will, for the remote work, where one of the normal advantages is that you can more manage your own time, but we actually do have a set time that we work, each of us, and then we cover 24/7 like that.
And I think if you jump back to episode 2 of the podcast, we had the Charlie's Angels of Crisis, Mr. Jorge Mesa, jump on and speak a lot about your function, Jesper, and all of the great work your team's doing. So check that out.
So we've sort of talked about the benefits, but Jesper, could you talk about some of maybe the challenges then of managing a distributed workforce as opposed to people that you gather in an office?
Yeah, so there is the same issue that I just mentioned with all the different time zones and having set shifts. So for me, for example, I'm the luckiest one of our team. I have one coworker that I basically only see on team meetings and then only speak to otherwise every 2 weeks or something, because she has the exact opposite shift to me. So she always works late in the day US time, and I'm early in EMEA time, and so I don't ever see her really. So we don't ever get to have that conversation. So exactly, stepping even further away from that water cooler that you mentioned before. So we don't get to have group conversations very often, but more and more with technology, we're getting more back into that, or finding solutions. And I'll say it's much easier now than it was even 5 years ago with what we have to work with. So it really becomes important to set up systems for you to communicate properly, and video conferences has been a game changer for us, because it allows you to put so much more of your person into it. It puts a different priority to your calls, in both one-to-one with managers and in team settings, and it just makes the team dynamic much better, that you're able to see each other and you're able to more interact face to face rather than just ear to ear.
Right.
It's so fascinating.
Chicka, you...
Well, can I just jump in for another question on Jesper there? Because I look at both your faces here as we talk around this roundtable, you and Suzanne, as well as Deborah. But I look at Suzanne, who's based fully in an office, and who could probably even smell the person next to her. And then I got Jesper here saying that he hardly even gets to meet his team. Jesper, do you have or how does your team, the culture of your team, how do you keep that in a distributed workforce? And you are almost like passing ships in the night distributed.
Yes, and this is where we do a little thing and then we do a big thing. And the big thing is more dependent on the support from BCD Travel. And the first many years that I was with this team, we were lucky enough to have an annual meeting where we get together for a week. And that week really sort of is where you just take the ball and punt it down the road. That's where you get all the motivation, all the cohesiveness, all of the
buckets are filled,
common
right?
drive. All of the common drive and understanding of what we're doing and agreements of where we're going and how we're going to do that and what are we going to do together, who we are as a team. And I think that's something that's really difficult to replicate if you don't see each other in person to person. So I'm a big proponent of the remote, distributed workforce. But I don't think there's anything that can really replace face-to-face meetings as well. So I think that's sort of where you have to be really aware to fill up the bucket, as you say, and get back to that team cohesiveness. And then a little thing that we do every year is we take a video call just before the holidays, the winter holidays, we say now, because we also have a religious diverse team now, where we take a video call and go and have a holiday theme. Everyone brings a beverage and a holiday treat, and we talk about each other's cultures, and we talk about how we celebrate things, and make it personal as well. So instead of the lunchroom conversations, we make sure that we put part of our person into the team as well, and not just work.
Hashtag distributed and diverse, right? Very cool, Jesper. And if I could ask a similar question to Suzanne, with your permission, Deborah, when it comes to you, Suzanne, who is in the office full time, and I'm thinking about the Utrecht office specifically. You used to have like this lunchroom on the top floor where I used to walk in, and everyone was kind of connecting, and that's where the relationship that Jesper was just talking about was built. Do you feel now that that's gone? Is it purely work, or how do you, as the office now, continue to build that relationship with each other so it's not all just black and white work all the time? Because you're kind of distributed floor by floor, so there is that kind of feel too, right?
Yeah, it's true. Since the lunchroom is gone, you do maybe see, some departments less. You can get your coffee on a different floor, and then maybe you meet some different departments at the coffee machine there. No, I think like it's probably easier, if you're in the office, and then if you see someone in the hallway, or if you walk to a meeting room, you see someone and you have a small talk. So probably when you're virtual, then you have to invest maybe more of your time, or be more conscious about it to build that kind of personal relationship that maybe goes by itself when you're in an office. I have someone in my team in Sweden, for example, and I think it's important to have very regular calls with her, just to have that personal connection, and because it makes it so much easier to work with someone. As what Jesper also said, like the face-to-face meeting that you have makes it so much easier to work together, more efficiently together, when you're not in the same office. And to come back to your question, we don't have the lunchroom anymore. We do have some Friday afternoon drinks sometimes with different departments, so that's maybe the way that we we connect. But
right, and you're getting close to happy hour right now, I think, on a Friday.
That's
almost,
awesome.
Yeah. And just as we're getting excited and into some really thick discussion, I'm going to pause us right there, and you'll have to join us next week on A World of BCD to pick up this roundtable discussion on the distributed workforce.